Hi, teachers. Welcome. I'm so glad you're able to join us. My name is Jamie Woltz. If I haven't met you before, I'm part of Mission Equip, and this is part of our Teacher to Teacher project. And today we are doing a workshop on a very important topic, stress management. I am part of the administrative team for Teacher to Teacher project. I'm not actually a teacher, but I do have my master's degree in psychological counseling. So I will be not the expert on today's workshop, but I will be questions to a true expert in this field. And I'm going to hand it over to her. This is Chelsea Cassidy. She is a new face to anyone who has previously joined us in one of our conferences, but she is not new to us. She is a close friend to many people and a sibling to one of our well-known teachers. And she is also a licensed clinical social worker. And so today she is going to share with us her expertise on stress and how to manage it. So I'm going to pass it over to her to talk about her experience.
Great. Thank you so much, Jamie. I appreciate you so much for hosting this conversation. And I want to pause and just thank you all teachers for joining us. I wish more than anything I could be looking into your eyes right now and having this conversation and have some live Q&A with you. But I am so thankful for technology and allowing us to have this experience to connect virtually. So just know I may not be looking at you right now, but you're in my heart and I am excited to have this discussion. A little bit about myself. I live in Richmond, Virginia. I was born and raised here, and I attended Virginia Commonwealth University for my undergraduate degree in social work. And then I also stayed and received my master's there. I graduated in 2010. It does not seem that it's been 10 years ago. I thoroughly enjoyed my time there and so valued the education that I received. After I received my master's of social work, I immediately started pursuing my licensed clinical social work. And that gives me the privilege to be able to provide licensed therapy to anybody, but I focus on adults, and my experience is mostly with the geriatric population. So I have been working with hospice care, which is end-of-life care, working with patients that are given a terminal diagnosis of 6 months or less to live and get to be on the high privilege of their journey through end of life and emotionally walking them through their dying process. So it is a high honor, but is also loaded with a lot of stress and a lot of tough conversations, which I know tough conversations are part of your daily life, teachers. And I know that you could educate me on so many of the tough topics that you have to have in dialogue. So today we're gonna just talk about that, but we're also really gonna pause to take care of you because that's what matters. So I have hospice experience, and then I have a private practice where I provide that individual therapy. I've been doing that since 2013. So that's a little bit about me and my background.
That's awesome. Well, you are clearly the expert on here, and so we are in good hands. We'll go ahead and get started, and I know you wanted to start with an exercise.
Yes. So imagine I'm with you teachers right now, whether that's in your classroom, whether that's in your home, whatever environment that you are, I want you to pause. And this would look differently if we were in the same room together, but I'm asking you to pause and close your eyes. I want you to
mimic what you're supposed to be doing.
That sounds great. Pause and close your eyes. Sit back in your chair and get comfortable. And now breathe. Breathing is something that we do unconsciously, but it is so necessary for us to stop and focus on our breathing. I want you to breathe enough times for you to notice your breath. Feel your chest rising. Your lungs filling up with air, and you exhaling. Breathe slowly. Now, take a breath in to the count of 4. Now breathe out to the count of 4. Do that again. We're breathing in to the count of 4. And now breathing out to the count of 4. Imagine breathing out negative thoughts, toxic thoughts. They have no place inside of you today. Now, come back into this moment. Open your eyes and take one more breath in and out. Next, I want you to know that you have been focused in all the previous trainings about your teacher techniques, how to provide the right education, what skills you need to learn to better connect with your students to move them forward. And I love everything that you guys have been learning. Like Jamie said, my sister is a teacher and has been down to Belize many times, and I get to see her practicing to teach you, and it's been such an honor. So I have had a behind the scenes look into what you all do, and I am amazed. But today, this training is just about you. Not about the environment of your classroom, not what you have to set up or tear down or manage behaviors. This is truly just about you. I want you to repeat after me. I matter. Say it again. I matter. It took me a long time, even though I'm fairly young, but it took me until my late 20s for me to realize that I matter. And it was groundbreaking once that sunk in. And I want you to think about how much you matter. Your thoughts, your feelings, and your needs matter. We will now discuss how to manage those stressors in our life so you can be the best self that you can be. You wear many different hats. You have roles and responsibilities, and you matter in each one of those.
Wow. Thank you, Chelsea. I think that is a great way to start off this workshop. And I feel grounded doing the breathing exercise and just being reminded of that it is, I mean, even not as a teacher, just as a human, sometimes it's easy to forget that we matter. So I am appreciative of that. So we'll start with, this is gonna be a Q&A, and I'm gonna start by just asking the basics. How do you define stress?
So that may vary based upon the person that you ask, because everybody interprets stress differently. What is stressful to Chelsea is not necessarily stressful to Jamie. But from a medical, biological context, stress is a physical, mental, and emotional factor that causes the body or our mental state tension. So what could be examples of that? Internal stressors. That could be an illness or a medical procedure. That could be anxiety or depression, that no one has eyes to see what you were walking around in. It could be external stressors, the environment. Suddenly, there is no power. Suddenly, you left your keys at home and you cannot unlock your door. And you're thinking, how am I going to teach the students today? I can't even get into my classroom. It could be social situations that you are encountering. Stress in your body, stress is your body's reaction to the demands in the world. And the demands are heavy and thick. I'm going to talk about this later, but how thick is stress right now with the pandemic that we are experiencing on a global level with the coronavirus? Our worlds have been upside down. We had to adjust on our feet quickly. That is heavy stress. It's a part of our conversation in our jobs, in our homes, in just trying to go to the grocery store. What does that look like? That fear of the unknown, especially at the early stages. I know a lot of people are tired of talking about the coronavirus, but in reality, it really hasn't been around that long. So there's a lot more to learn. And so we are at the very beginning of this. And anytime you do something new, it's a first time. Think about the first time you rode a bike. That was scary. Did you fall off? Did you skim your knee? So it took a lot of practice. And managing stress takes practice. So we'll talk about that as well. But the important thing is we want to establish new routines. We want to establish a sense of well-being to be able to be flexible to respond to the demands that are placed upon us.
Oh, thank you. That's a great way to start. So now that we kind of know what stress is it normal? Is it something?
Oh, yes. It is so normal. All living beings have stress. Everything. I mean, all things God created have stress.
Mm-hmm.
Animals, bugs, you name it, but human beings. We are the one that have a vast majority of reactions to stress. We have more options on how we handle it. And sometimes it's healthy and sometimes it's unhealthy.
Yes.
So I think that this is a common area that people can compare.
Mm-hmm.
Side note, comparison is the thief of all joy.
I like that.
So just pause and say, okay, how am I managing my stress? Don't think about, oh gosh, Jamie manages her stress that way. She never appears stressed. Well, I'm only probably seeing Jamie in a snapshot of her life in this piece. I don't see how she manages every single task.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are not handling your stress signals in a healthy, proactive way, you're more likely to come unglued. And when you come unglued, it's never pretty. Usually your body suffers, but the people around you suffer too. But a lot of people think stress is negative. And I want to just pause and recognize that stress is not necessarily a bad thing. It can be good. It can move us into action. It can give us adrenaline to finish strong, to finish a race. I once ran what we call in Richmond the Monument 10K. One time I ran it. There are people that run it year after year after year and do the Richmond Marathon, and I couldn't be more proud of them, but I am not that gal.
Yeah.
So, but I needed adrenaline to finish that race. I was bound and determined, but my body was feeling stressed. My body was feeling tired, but I used that adrenaline to finish strong. We want stress to help us accomplish goals and achieve our dreams. But the goal is to not let the stress elevate to a point where it becomes problematic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that leads really well into my next question, because you talked about the adrenaline and the physical reaction. So how can stress affect your emotional and physical health?
Yeah, it can create a lot of harm. So I think there's always power with knowledge. So I want to pause and just identify emotional risk factors and physical risk factors that you could say, gosh, this could be stress related. And in and of itself may not be related to stress, but stress does affect so many parts of our body. So emotionally, what does that look like? It could mean that somebody is depressed. It could mean that you are anxious. You get angry, irritable, restless, trouble sleeping, sleeping too much, racing thoughts, constant worrying, problems with your memory or concentration, having poor decision-making skills. All of those in and of itself are not terrible. You can have a moment. Let's all give grace to having a moment of a bad decision. But a lot of times when our stress levels are high, our intelligence is low. So being mindful of our stress. What does it look like physically? Low energy, headaches, upset stomach, could be diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, all the yucky stuff. You could have aches and pains, intense muscles, insomnia, frequent colds or infections, loss of sexual desire or ability. So being able to say, hey, what's going on with my body? How am I reacting it? Mm-hmm. But we also need to pause to be able to identify that. A lot of times we are not pausing. Just like I said in the beginning, let's pause and breathe. We got to pause to be self-aware. We never like it when other people call us out. Or as I recently heard, call in. Let's call you in and see how you're doing. But it never feels good when other people are doing that. But when you have a healthy routine to call yourself into an internal check, you're better able to manage your stress levels and have that knowledge of what is happening inside of you.
I really like that. So to even understand when we are feeling the stress emotionally and how that's exhibiting or displaying, we have to like regularly check in or call in to where we are right now. So even when we're feeling healthy, we should know how like that feels physically and emotionally, so we know when we go off of that.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Okay, well, now that we've learned how it displays, is it possible to get rid of stress?
Well, I would say that you are probably going to live a frustrated life if your goal is just to eliminate stress. The goal is not to eliminate it, but to decrease it by managing your stress, which we'll talk about ways to do that. But the goal is to decrease it so you can have healthy stress responses. So I find it encouraging that this is something you can control. Mm-hmm. Side note, I like control. It feels really good and safe to me, even though it's a false sense of control. But I've got to surrender my control daily. But how about you? Do you like feeling in control? Yeah. Uh-huh. So this is something you can control. You get to control your reactions to your stress. It's easy to say, oh, I just can't control my anger. I can't control my stomach ache or my headache or this. Well, what are you doing to control it? You know, I'm not saying that you can eliminate it, but are there things that you are doing to better manage it? Mm-hmm. Stress is your body's way of responding to any type of demand or threat. That could be a sense of danger, which could be real or imagined, and you can have a flight or flight response. Has anybody been in that kind of situation before? Do you know, are you usually in it to fight through it, or you're like, I'm out? You know, it's good, it's okay. It is okay to have either one of those. There are some times in some situations that I'm like, I am all in. If you need me, I am totally there. I'm going to be there to take care of you, to hold your hand. People feel like that at end of life. Like, here I am. I'm going to hold your hand. I'm going to stick with it. I don't want to miss one breath. And then there's other people that, and even family members that said, you know what? I can't come. I know my dad is on his deathbed, but I just can't come. I don't want to come. I don't want to remember him in this state. And that is a non-judgmental place to be, but just knowing, okay, here's how I respond in these situations. Sometimes I'm going to fight and sometimes I'm going to flight. Mm-hmm. Stress can be your body trying to protect you. Warning signs to slow down. Maybe that headache is a good thing because you think, hey, I got to go close my eyes. We never love getting a migraine. We're sensitive to light, but it usually causes us to a point of pause. Mm-hmm. So there can be great power in what your body does to get your attention. The goal, again, is to not let it build up so much that it has caused so much damage. But if we're doing those pauses, if we're doing those check-ins, we have a better gauge into how we're managing it.
Yeah, the fight or flight thing, I mean, I think many of us have possibly heard about that before. And then recently, something we discussed, well, not recently, but last year we discussed in one of our trainings actually was an additional response, which I had not heard of until then, but freeze. Fight, flight,
Yes.
freeze.
Yes.
And I don't know, we were talking about it more in response to kids, but as grown-ups, I think that's something that we also experience where we withdraw. Is similar to flight, but it's more just of a shutting down. And I've seen that with myself. I've seen that with my friends, where if they're really stressed out, they don't want to do anything. Like making the bed is too much. Like
Sure.
it's overwhelming. And I just always once I learned this, I was like, oh, they're freezing right now, because that is them displaying, this is their reaction to stress. So that is, I mean, these are great examples of how this can exhibit and how to, that we can't get rid of it, but sometimes it's positive. Like you said, it's a warning sign. Like if we have a headache, let's take a pause. Like maybe we just need to like slow down.
Yes.
So
that is so true. I'm so glad you brought up the freeze, because that is a very natural response as well.
Yeah. Sometimes you need a nap.
Yes.
So now that we understand that, what is the first step to managing stress?
Okay, so let's identify, is this good stress or bad stress? So then let's go back to before the stress or the event occurred, when you said yes. When you said, yes, I'll throw that party. When you said, yes, I'll attend that wedding. When you said, yes, I'll bring dinner for X, Y, and Z, a friend. You have to pause in life and evaluate, is this your best yes? Did you sign up for an additional project at school? We need to pause and say, okay, if I say yes to this obligation, and you may really like it, that's the problem, is that we usually say yes to things we like. But how does that affect you physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, and there's a fifth one, spiritually? We need to evaluate those 5 categories. And if we are saying, you know what, that actually is not best for my physical well-being right now, then we need to be able to say, this is not my best yes. As long as you get one no in those categories, that is not your best yes. And the goal of that is to limit your yeses, so you are not overcommitting yourself. There is great power in saying no, because that creates more margin for you. Then ask yourself, can this be done today, tomorrow, or even ever? Who's putting this demand on you? You know, is making the bed before you go out for work, putting all the dishes away. You know, what is necessary and what can wait? What additional demands and expectations do we place upon ourselves? A great step into combating the stress as well is to be positive. Express gratitude and count your blessings.
I like that. And that kind of goes back to what you talked about earlier with just checking in with where you are. So if all of these things seem overwhelming, like, do you really need to put the dishes away? What is the demand there? But checking in also on like what you have in this moment and what is positive, and focusing on that.
That's being able to restructure our thoughts. And I will get to that in a couple minutes as well. I know I want to be mindful of time, because I could talk about this all day. But I respect your time, teachers. But I wanted to share that cognitive behavioral therapy is a common approach that we use in the therapy realm. And the goal of using the cognitive behavioral therapy technique is to change the order of our thoughts, to change the contents of our thoughts, because the content of our thoughts in our mind affects our behaviors. So that's why, sometimes people say, gosh, she makes it sound so simple. All you have to do is be positive, be grateful. Well, if I am grateful, I'm more likely to be happy. If I am stuck in the mud about something I'm frustrated with and I don't agree, and why do they act that way, I'm going to just be angry and I'm going to be tense. And that muscle tension, that stress is going to sit inside of me. But I have to regulate myself and my body and my mind. And that's a great time to go back to, hey, let's do that breathing exercise. Let's breathe out those negative thoughts, breathe out those toxic thoughts.
That's great. Well, going into that some more, I know you had some other ways as well to manage stress that we could get into.
Yes, absolutely. So one is establish a daily routine. It feels good and it's successful when you have a predictable day ahead for you. And I know, being a teacher, you probably are like, I've got that. My kids run on routine. This is when they come in. This is when snack time. This is when we transition to math and science. So you're used to a routine in a school setting. But in your home environment, do you have a routine? Do you wake up at the same time every day? For me, I wake up 1 hour before my kids. That some days is painful because I don't enjoy getting up that early. But guess what? That's 1 hour of me time. That's guaranteed. I can have some silence and solitude. I can pray. I can shower without being interrupted. It's the little things that we can do to create margin for ourselves. Sometimes it's inconvenient. Yeah, I go to bed really early because I wake up really early. And sometimes that's not super fun because I miss out. However, I've got to protect me, because guess what? I matter. You matter. If I make good decisions tonight, I'm going to set up a good day for tomorrow. So some other tips. Exercising. The goal would be to exercise 3 to 4 times a week for about 30 minutes each. Turn on some music, sing, let your voice be heard. And here's the other thing, laugh. Laugh at yourself. I recently read that children laugh about 400 times a day, and adults laugh about 15 times a day. That got my attention. Humor is a great tool to reduce your stress. It improves your mood, it decreases your pain, and guess what? You're much more approachable when you're laughing. So laugh at yourself too.
I like that. Well, as we briefly talked about like the pandemic that's happening right now, which hopefully isn't forever, but it's been a huge change in my life. I know, Chelsea, for you with your patients, it's been a huge change. Obviously for you teachers, it's been a massive change with your students, and going back in the fall, you don't necessarily know what it's going to look like. And it could change, like everything's changing right now. So I'm going to ask Chelsea to leave us with some encouragement to you teachers, and what to do with this stressful in school in general, and then especially during this time.
So let's start with the pandemic, because that's so fresh on our mind. It has changed our world. It's suddenly changed our world. I have not lived through a pandemic before. And I think a great tool to have is being flexible. Be flexible with the school, be flexible with the students, be flexible with your family, and be flexible with yourself. Give grace. Give tons of grace in every area, but most importantly to yourself. A lot of times right now, I have caught myself playing the what if game. What if I have to return back to an office setting? What if I don't turn back to an office setting? What if you guys are asking, are the students returning to school? I'm afraid of returning to school. Do we have enough equipment? Do we have enough protective gear? Do we have enough sanitation materials? Fill in the blank of the what if. But now I'm referencing back the cognitive behavioral therapy. I want you to change that what if question you have to even if. Even if you go back and you don't have what you need. State something that you do have. Turn that into a positive. What if you go back and there is an outbreak? What do you know to be true? You know more now than you did at the beginning of this pandemic. Mm-hmm. You may not agree with the decisions that people are having to make right now. And so it's easy to get in a place of fear, the fear of the unknown. Pause and ask yourself, even if I have a family, I am loved, I am a good teacher, my skills, even if we have to suddenly stop, we will be able to adapt and be flexible. And I am still good.
That's great. I've definitely been playing the what if game before the pandemic and now during it. And I got goosebumps when he said, do even if. I was like, and that just changed, just in these few seconds, that changed my mindset. So I hope teachers that brought you as much comfort and felt like you can handle it. You can take the action and you got it. You trust yourself. So thank you, Chelsea, for that. And like Chelsea said, we want to be respectful of y'all's time. So is there anything else, Chelsea, before we conclude that you wanted to add?
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to conclude with a quote by Ebony Chambers Douglas, and she's 11 years old. If you go down the wrong road, make a right turn.
And smarter than anything I could say. Well, thank you so much, Chelsea. Thank you, teachers, for taking the time to join us during this workshop. And I hope you joined me. And thanking Chelsea for taking the time out of her job, her family, everything to share her expertise with us. I got a lot out of this, so I'm hoping you all did too. And now I'm going to direct you, because you all should have access to your teacher-to-teacher Google Classroom, and there will be a reflection assignment there for you to complete. And once you do that, then you will get your 1 hour of credit. And if there are questions, you always reach out to us. But that is it. And thank you so much. Thanks, Chelsea, again. And thank you, teachers. And we can't wait to see you in person sometime.
Thank you so much.